Getting a Grip on the Michigan Business Network. I am your host, Mike Maddox. So glad to be with you on another episode of Getting a Grip on this show. As you know, if you are a longtime listener, short-time listener, we talk about the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS, and what it is, how it impacts businesses, what are the elements of it, why it's taken off like crazy, why I do it for a living. And on the show today, I'm really excited to have Gabe Muller. Gabe and I go back. We were in the same boot camp class when we started as EOS implementers. Gabe is a certified EOS implementer out of Virginia. And Gabe, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good to be here.
It's great to have you, man. And I'm so eager to talk to you. You've done such amazing work with your clients and growing your practice and really making an impact for the businesses that you serve. And why don't we just start with, maybe at the beginning, what made you decide, Gabe, that, hey, I want to do this full time. I want to coach, facilitate, and teach. I want to be an EOS implementer. I want to work with business leadership teams and help them get healthy. How did that come about?
Well, it's a great question. And the way that it came about for me was that I was actually on the other side of the table. I was the integrator of a financial planning firm. And we had a professional EOS implementer. And it turned out, as life would go and how it goes, that implementer happened to be one of my best friends. And I didn't even realize that he was the implementer for the firm that I had joined. And so our paths crossed. And the odd thing about that was years before that, his name is Randy. Years before that, Randy had actually mentioned to me, Gabe, you ought to become an EOS implementer. And this was in 2000, that would have been in 2015, 16. And then fast forward into 2021 is when we crossed paths as he was our implementer. Yeah. And I thought, this is like God's way of saying, what are you doing, Gabe? You probably ought to do this because, here we are again. But I was in an integrator position, and long and short of it was, I've always had a desire to do more for more people. And that's one of the reasons I left my first firm to start my own company. Well, when COVID happened, I ended up going back into the second firm and being their integrator. Well, that's when Randy and I crossed paths again. And so it was about a year or so into that firm that Randy and I were talking, and I just said, you know what, I think it's time. And so when you think about unique ability, which is, something we talk a lot about, it was that time that I thought, you know what, I have to go for it. And so I decided to resign again from a perfectly good firm and take the leap of becoming an EOS implementer. And so that happened in September of 2022, which is where exactly you and I met. So that's how this happened.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that, or I had forgotten that you were in that position. You and I have very similar paths there, where I was an EOS visionary. I was a visionary of a firm that was implementing EOS. And I started to hear the same thing from EOS folks that, hey, Mike, you should do this. Like, this is something, I'm seeing something in you where you probably find your purpose, cause, and passion. And one thing led to another. I ended up as an integrator at the firm we sold my company to for a while, for a couple of years, and then now doing this full time. But I didn't realize our paths were so similar. How is it? I'm curious. We know what EOS, the impact it has for businesses, and we'll talk more about that today. But how has it impacted you? I mean, in what ways has EOS made you a better coach, teacher, person, father, husband, whatever? How has it impacted you personally?
Boy, I first of all, I think I have to say, how hasn't it? It's, I have to tell you that having become an implementer in September of 2022 and fast forwarding to today, the amount of people, teams, and different organizations, types of organizations that I've been able to interact with and work with has been absolutely incredible. I mean, it's almost hard to think about from a standpoint of reflecting on that time frame, because I feel like it's gone by like that. I think the way that specifically and maybe more acutely that it's affected me and impacted me is that we're all dealing with the same thing. We're all dealing with these issues, but at the end of the day, we're all human. Just because we have a business doesn't mean we all have other things going on in our lives as well. And being able to walk into an organization and, it takes some time to build that trust with a team. But then once you do, getting into the depths of the reality of the things that are going on, which are very human level things, to me is so amazing to think about that I have that ability to be able to do that and be in that position. But I think being an implementer and really diving deep on sessions and being so focused, frankly, I feel like one of the things that it's taught me even more is just this idea of active listening, just active listening and understanding, seeking to understand, having that level of curiosity of saying, there's more to this. Tell me more, and entering that danger. But you can't do that unless you have this a level of active listening. And so it's as simple as this might sound. I feel like becoming an implementer has forced me to be more intentional with how I show up and listening to people that are in the room.
For sure.
Helping people.
More engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the same experience where I'm more, I guess the word's engaged. I'm more in the conversations I'm in, right? My mind isn't somewhere else. Like I've had the same experience. And you mentioned, as we pivot to what are some themes you've seen with businesses? You started talking about this, that we all deal with the same things, right? I mean, businesses all face the same issues. And I've known that throughout my career, regardless of company size I was with or coaching, the issues are the same. The scale's different, the complexities are different, but the issues are the same. What are some common themes that you've seen as you've worked with clients?
Well, I think a few of the common themes would be when teams start to realize that they may or may not have the right person on the team. So that people component, right? One of the most important components we discuss and teach and talk about, right? But one of the themes I find is that when we go through the people work we do and the people analyzer or things like that, and we get to the end of whatever that might look like, and someone says, well, I've always felt it, but I never really knew it. I didn't know what. Well, now I know. And it's like, the theme there is that we always kind of have this gut feeling, and it takes a process for some people to really anchor to and make it a decision from, which is a rather emotionless decision versus a very emotional decision. And so I think that the process itself really flushes itself out. But the theme is that we always have people issues. We just maybe not know, we might not know how to handle them. And I feel like EOS does a phenomenal job of allowing leadership teams to handle them.
That's a really good point, and I'm really glad you brought that up. And I agree wholeheartedly. Most of the issues are people issues, and getting the right person in the right seat. And we all make that mistake before EOS or before a intentional program to analyze your people on core values and on their ability to do the job they're in, right people, right seats, of putting up with stuff that, our gut's telling us something's off, but we don't have clarity on it. And that exercise that you take your clients through gives them the clarity, and they go, that's why. And then there's some intentionality. I love that answer. What advice would you give if there's a listener out there who is considering EOS, maybe has read the book or heard the buzz and all these the 100,000 plus companies running on it? What advice would you give them?
From a standpoint of somebody that's looking to implement EOS, or
or they're just considering it. They're not sure, because as a former business executive yourself, and I know as a former business owner, when you first hear of these things, you're kind of, okay, yeah, I've heard, there's a million things you hear about. It's all going to change my world, and right.
Yep.
So what would you say to that?
It's a great question. I think that how I would maybe frame some advice is that you have to put your mind into a position that you believe that process creates freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe that, or can even get to the level of maybe being able to believe that, and being open to learning about how a model and therefore process can help create freedom, I do believe that that is a great approach, which is very different than saying, oh, no, I mean, I got my processes. I have all the stuff. I know everything. Well, if that is the case, then it's probably just not going to work for you.
Right.
And so, I think that having a level of humility and self-awareness there is great, but also being open to the idea of process creates freedom. That being said, once you do commit to something, go all in or go all out, meaning don't kind of half in, half out sort of thing, because regardless if it's EOS or anything else, it's going to create a lot of complexity and confusion for you. You're probably not going to get as much ROI off of that.
Yeah, I love that answer. Do you bring that up with companies that are considering EOS when you first meet them? We call it, if you're not familiar with the process, we call it a 90 within EOS. We'll meet with a prospective business that's thinking about it. And the intent is to give them the information that they need on how EOS works, what the tools are, what our coaching style is, and give them enough information to make a decision as to whether it's right for them. Do you point that out that, hey, this isn't something you do as a seminar or you try? I mean, this is like, you're either all in or you're all out.
Yeah. So 100%. I always talk about this. And as a matter of fact, I was on a 90-minute call today. And this literally came up, and I said, it's either a heck yes or a heck no, because everything in the middle is what you expect, right? Help that way. And so the idea of being committed is important. And I feel like if we can't do that at the beginning, you're most likely getting an early indication on how that might go for you in the future.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like fully commit, try this journey, try these philosophies and methodologies that truly work through a practical set of tools. Put your all in it, and then see how you feel. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel a heck of a lot better. And so, yeah, it's an all in or an all out sort of deal.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And I do the same thing. I do the, hell yes or hell no, heck yes or hell no. And it's, and I think that's refreshing for business leadership teams because they know what they're getting into. And the ones that are committed to change, to radical transparency, to process, to, hey, we're tired of bumping our head on the ceiling over and over again. Their immediate body language and response usually is hell yes, let's go.
Yeah. And one of the things I would mention on this too is that, as an EOS implementer, we do get into those 90-minute meetings, right? And where we are trying to help as many companies as we can, but we're trying to help the companies that EOS is right for. It's not right for everyone. And so what I like to say too is that it's, if you try to drag them in, you're probably going to drag them around. And I don't want to do that. I also want to work with clients that genuinely want to make change for positive, knowing that it's going to be hard work. And I want them to also believe in me as a partner versus just a vendor that's coming in and we're going to have this seminar and move on. Like, no, this is totally different than that. And that we are going to be collaborators and we're going to work on your business 90 days at a time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's very well said. You know what I didn't mention yet, I don't think I did, is that you are also a pilot. So for a lot of your clients, you're flying yourself and you've had clients up in your plane. Talk about your other passion of flying. And I'm curious how it relates to your coaching. Have you found parallels?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because everything in aviation is process oriented as well, right? From a checklist to pre-flight debriefing, briefing, all of it is the same concepts from a process standpoint. That being said, EOS, we reference a lot of checklists. And so it's kind of cool to be able to weave in some stories around how a checklist might be appropriate as to when we have an issue in the air. Well, how can we learn from that when we're in our business and the appropriate checklist to apply to an issue we're facing in our business? And so those stories and correlations are something that I love. And really it's intersecting my professional and personal life, but it's very intertwined and integrated. And so aviation and EOS to me are one and the same essentially because of just how the process orientation on either side is. And so aviation is a large portion of my life and it's a passion, but EOS allows me to have that passion as well by using it help help my clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you flying up to Detroit for the next QCE? That's when implementers get together for our listeners.
I don't know if I'll fly up there. I try to keep my flying for clients and things like that up and down the East Coast. Longer flights like that, I might jump on an airliner and get some
Go
down.
commercial. Yeah. Yeah, a good friend of mine, pilot, says, it gets, believe it or not, long flights in a single or twin engine plane can get a little mundane after you're flying for a while. So,
a little bit. And the other thing,
hey, last question for you as we wrap up and we're running out of time. I wanted to ask you, I like to ask my guests if they have a specific movie scene or a poem, song, something that's inspired them over the years that comes to mind. I'm a big movie buff. I've seen every Rocky. I've seen, and my kids know I'll take scenes and I have them memorized and I'll quote them back to them as a parenting style. Is there anything that jumps to mind for you? Song, poem, anything that?
So I'm not a big movie guy. I'll tell you that. So full disclosure. But that being said, if you were to stick to that aviation theme, and if you've watched the movie Maverick over the last year or two, one of the scenes that I absolutely love, and it really hit me whenever I watched it in the Udvar Hazy Museum, which was when Maverick said, "Don't think, just do."
Yeah.
And to me, it resonates so well with me as an entrepreneur and as a 10 quick start, but it's just don't think, just do, which means just take action. And to me, that really resonated with me.
I love it. That is a great scene. And I have, that's the first time somebody's given me that scene as an answer. And I haven't thought about that scene since I saw the movie, which I loved. One of those rare sequels that's as good as the original, I think.
Yeah. Well said.
But that's a great line. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Don't think, just do. And with that in mind, hey, Gabe, I can't thank you enough for being on the program. It's been such a pleasure to catch up with you again and to have you on and get your insight. Terrific work. Keep up the great work helping so many companies. Gabe Muller, he is a certified EOS implementer operating out of Reston, Virginia, and helping clients all over the place. So thanks, Gabe.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening to Getting a Grip on the Michigan Business Network. We will catch you all on the flip side.